Adrian Rodgers, what are some of the challenges corporate treasurers have in dealing with their banking partners, and what steps do you advise corporate treasurers to take when managing these challenges?
There are a number. I would pick out, probably in no particular order, but towards the top of the list. Firstly, there are a lot of treasurers and treasuries that are struggling with what I term to be regulatory transfer. That is to say, regulatory issues that have now come across their desk, the responsibility of their staff, that previously either didn't exist or were the responsibility of banks. Most prominent among that number, I'd probably identify as sanctions compliance as being maybe one of the key issues. The second issue is also has a regulatory component, but it's to do with the way banks deal with and interpret regulation. If I can give an example of a general problem, if you ask two banks about their willingness to accept copy or duplicate documents, digitized documents, for instance PDFs, in lieu of wet signatures, one bank will say yes, they're happy with the PDF, and another will say, oh, absolutely not, and when asked why, they'll reply, it's for regulatory reasons. So it is an ongoing frustration for many treasurers that even major banks, when compared with their peers, appear to have different interpretations of regulatory issues on things which matter to corporates. Thirdly, the issue that's been around for 20 or more years, the issue of pricing complexity. Clients being presented with price schedules by banks that are in many cases not complete, and where they are complete, some of the descriptions are not transparent, if I can put it politely, and therefore the client doesn't know what they're expected to pay for. And then with some institutions there can still be, because of that complexity, a disconnect between what the bank has said that they are going to price their services at and the bill that eventually comes through. And still in some cases there are cases of banks that can't actually bill for their services out there. And finally, there's an issue about skills and experience. It can be a significant frustration to a corporate treasurer and to her or to his team when there's turnover in bank staffing and their more mature, experienced relationship manager, sales manager, whatever the title is, but their main point of contact is replaced by somebody who is maybe younger, more junior, and does not necessarily have the sufficient experience to understand the issues that the treasurer is trying to grapple.
So what can we do about this?
Some of the action is necessary on the bank side. The regulatory transfer issue is one which neither the corporate or the bank can influence significantly. However, I do think that the banking community in many cases could be more clear with their clients about what they, the bank, are allowed to do and are not allowed to do. I think there's a case there for communication. And that, of course, imposes an equal responsibility on the corporate side, having asked for the information, to sit down and listen. On the paperwork issue, I think those banks that are grappling with interpretations of regulations, I think the banks who have forums to talk to each other, I think banks could do more in terms of talking to their peer group and saying, what are we going to do about this? On the pricing complexity side of things, and I'm sorry this is adding up to quite a rap list for the banking community, but I am calling it the way I see it. Pricing complexity, at the very least, ensure that when your pricing schedule goes out to the client, it's complete and that any technical terms are explained. If that means putting a glossary on the back, well, take the time to develop the glossary. You're only going to have to do it once and send it out with each pricing schedule. Yeah. And on the and on the question of expertise at banks, I think corporates could probably be more open with their banks about what they need, yeah? And also they could push back quicker if they feel they're not getting what they need, and explain to the bank that it's not about the individual, but we need somebody who understands this topic or that topic, and can you give the relationship manager, sales manager, the appropriate support. I would like to suggest that banks only ever send out 10, 15 or 20-year industry veterans, but that would be totally unreasonable of me to suggest.